Welcome back, Motorsport Minute listeners. We got a pretty good guest coming on tonight. Clutch Marles is a father, soon to be husband. I love what he's doing with the Derby world. Not everyone has the means or ability to just build a car. And if you have someone like him out there creating content on helping or showing the fun, showing the family, everything, derbying takes all of it, and he's out there showing it. I'm happy to have him on the podcast tonight. I hope you enjoy it. And thanks again for listening. Well, I'm going to kick this thing off. I appreciate you coming on, Clutch. We're here on another episode of Motorsport Minute. It's always fun to get different guests on, especially across the globe like this. You're a few states away. These are my favorite ones. Sometimes these are the ones we find out kind of all sorts of different things. You guys do things different than we do up here. And I guess what really got you into it?
As a kid, I was pretty much raised by my grandparents, and I had two uncles that did demolition derbies, and my grandmother was totally against it. She said it was too dangerous, and she didn't want us to go watch them derby. Well, my grandpa would tell me to sneak out the back door and go get in his truck, and then he'd tell her that we're going to go drive around, and we'd head out to the county fair and watch them derby, and then show up and tell her how they did.
Sure. That's pretty neat. So,
Yeah.
so you started at a young age, pretty young age as a kid, basically. Kind of all sorts of builds, or what kind of builds got you into it?
When I first started, I got into mini cars because, they were cheaper. And a few years ago, I started adding it up and I had about $10,000 in a compact car. And I thought, where's the cheap side of this? Why aren't I doing full size?
Right.
And then we started doing a little bit bigger things and realized that most of the time your mini car parts will fit in a full size.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. And as we know, parts aren't getting any cheaper,
No.
especially if you want quality parts. I started out building all of my own parts, just couldn't afford to buy the good stuff right away. I was young too, as probably a lot of people have. I started in the compact world. It was a lot easier back then, get into that
Hmm.
than it is now, I think. I think they've evolved so much that it's actually probably harder to get into that than a chain car.
Yeah.
For
You
sure.
do a lot of chain. Have you done a lot of chain cars?
Yeah, I've done my whole career, even if I'm not running limited or a mod car, I've probably ran one or two chain cars for the last 12 years. So probably my favorite just because you can throw them together in no time and I don't know, still have the same amount of fun in my opinion.
Last year, we were doing chain mini cars, and it was getting to the point where I could build one by myself in like 6 to 7 hours.
Nice.
And we were winning and getting second places, and we would buy the car for $200 to $300. I'd run it, win money, we'd scrap it, and then on my way home from the scrapyard, I would pick up another car for $200 to $300 and do it all again the following week.
Wow. Are cars still hard to find in your area or not too bad?
Yes, and if you want to pay the price, you can find cars, but it seems like a lot of mini car guys nowadays know what they're sitting on. And I see guys selling W bodies for $1,500,
Oh
and I
wow.
see guys selling 80s Fords for $1,500. And I will retire before I'll pay that much for a car.
And where exactly are you located?
Southern Indiana.
Southern Indiana. Okay. And I mean, there's a lot of derbies in your area, not?
I'm about an hour and a half away from Redneck Rumble and the Wicked Team Show.
Okay.
And a lot of toast shows up north, and he does the Indiana State Fair. That's like 3 or 4 hours from me.
Okay. So on average, how many shows are you running a summer?
Uh, this year, I think we did 7 or 8 shows in
Wow.
5 different states.
That's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. Is that your Blizzard Bash car behind you?
Yeah.
Okay. So what ended up taking you out?
Uh, Jesus.
By the wheel,
If
huh?
Jesus, I feel like he took me out because if you guys watch the video, within like the first minute, my radiator hose went into my fan,
Sure.
and I lost all my coolant. And about 2 minutes later, my rear end locked up and wouldn't go forward, wouldn't go backwards. And I feel like Jesus knew that if he didn't stop me, that's a brand new engine. That
Okay.
was its first run. This is the first car it's been in, and
Sure.
Jesus knows that I would have melted it down because I wouldn't have stopped, man. It's Blizzard Bash.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to a lot of people prior to you on the podcast and even off air, and pretty much everyone has the same mentality when you're down at Blizzard Bash. It's all or nothing down there. I think Devin Grenvald on uh, one of the national teams, he fried two engines, not cheap ones either. I think one was a Baldwin and one was a Redline. So it's like, he went all or nothing, but that's what you're there for, right?
Yep. What are you gonna do? Try to take home a fresh car?
You're right. Right. That's kind of the last thing you want to do. Well, anyways, for us, that was about a 12 and a half hour drive. So,
Yeah, we were after stopping for gas about 8 hours.
yeah, that gets to be long enough, though.
Hmm.
How was tech for you waiting in line and everything?
Uh, I got. They said that we could tech at 8 a.m. I got there at like 7:30. I was the second limited weld car I think to go through tech,
Oh,
and pretty much my cut list was everything I figured it would be. So it was
sure.
pretty easy.
Sure. Yeah. And something I always bring up to kind of with everyone, it's kind of hard to juggle the family life and the derby life, isn't it?
Yeah. Uh, I got 4 kids,
Sure.
and they just most of the time on those far away derbies, they watch me from their mom's house, and luckily Derby Tees does a good job of putting it on. And
Right. Right. Yeah. It's getting them there, the expense, these big shows that, those are kind of some of the things that make it tough. But we are fortunate enough to have something like the pay-per-view world to at least allow people far away to watch. But no, it's pretty neat to see. I mean, especially I wish we would have caught up with each other down there, how you're kind of evolving. So what got you into the whole creator side of like the derbying and I see you're really into like the Instagram and YouTube side of it as well, which is it's awesome to see because those are the kind of things that are going to start growing the sport, in my opinion. I'm sure you've seen Jason Kinman stuff. He,
hmm
you know, a lot of people used to hold a lot of those things as secrets, and he's out there showing people. And I think it proves that anyone can do it now, and it really does help. So, what made you do it?
well, like you were saying on your podcast, I forget it was a couple guests ago. Uh, People don't want to tell people what they're doing. I'll build a whole car and put it online when I don't even know what I'm doing. I've had so many comments telling me, you're doing this wrong. And I'm like, well, we're going to find out. Like everybody, it's a big secret. But if you look at the Blizzard Bash cars, pretty much it's cookie cutter. All the Fords look the same, all the Cadillacs look the same. Like I'm just trying to show people, like, hey, here's a different way to do things. And, just the rules for Blizzard Bash, I had to call other drivers from different states because I do a lot of mini car stuff, but
Right,
reading their full size rules, there was parts of it where I didn't even know what they were asking.
right.
And I feel like if people can film that and put it online, it would help other drivers because somebody wanting to build their first derby car, I don't feel like they could be competitive based off the rules to some of these big shows.
Yeah, and it's not even big shows. Uh just for instance, if I were to hop over to Minnesota or Montana, maybe not Montana as much, but I know Minnesota, their rules might say super stock, but in my opinion, they're like limited weld, maybe
Mm-hmm.
even at the top of that scale. And their wording is different, how they use different slang in the rules. Everyone's kind of got their own like little terms for different things. Um, But I had a spot down at Blizzard Bash in 2019, so I fully get you with the rules. Sometimes you just don't know, and luckily there are some people that will tell you, but there's not a lot that will show you physically. It's a huge learning curve.
Like when I put my watts brackets on, there's not a lot of videos on YouTube on how to do watts brackets. I
None.
did not film mine because I'm figuring out as I go. And when they put my car on the lift in Kansas and they said, "Why'd you do it like that?" That's when I realized I'm like, man, I
Did it wrong.
maybe I did it weird.
Yep.
But yeah, they were laughing at me. They're like, "Yeah, there's a better way to do your watts brackets."
Yeah, my first time doing watts, I had the same thing. But I had the same scenario. I ran Winter Slam, I don't know, back in 2015 maybe, and I did something. It was on a W body. I I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but I remember the guy asking, so why'd you do it like that? Does it work well for you? And as like an instant for real moment, huh? Well, I screwed that up.
Sometimes when you do that, you just got to go with it and be like, "Yeah, it works every time."
Yeah, I think I'm sure I did. I was like, yeah, works great. And then I got it back to my trailer. God dang it, you idiot. Thinking about, well, can't change it now. Yeah, for sure. So is there kind of a group that you run with out there, or are you pretty much a solo?
I pretty much run solo. Like around here, it's a lot of groups show up. If you show up to a derby and you don't have 5 to 6 buddies with you, you're not gonna do that great. I prefer to show up alone because then I don't have to decide who I'm gonna hit, who I'm not.
Yeah.
I'll roll up, make friends when I get there, and then as far as I know, everybody's fair game when they say go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It doesn't matter where you go. There's always gonna be a group at a show that's running together. And from a promoter standpoint, it's unfortunately sometimes very hard to stop. I mean, some guys that run together are really good at doing what they do. Um,
If you were to look at the Wicked team show, like the
mhm.
past 3 years, the compact side of it, it's the same drivers every year. And we've all become close friends. So you get out there and like the feature or the consi and you look around, and you're like, well, I'm buddies with 15 out of 20 cars. So,
Right,
those five oddballs, they go out pretty fast. And then, you
right,
know,
right. Yeah, then after that, it's kind of whoever's in front of you. It gets tough when you start to run with friends or whatever it may be, and then you always got. I look at it from the spectator's standpoint too, because even if you're not in the derby, you can tell who's running together. So it's hard to watch from that standpoint sometimes.
around here, they all paint their cars the same. Like at
Yeah.
least show up with a different paint job.
Yeah, we don't have that as much. Just a lot of people know everyone knows who's friends. We're a lot smaller sample size than you guys, but yeah, there's not too many people that paint their cars the same, but yeah, I guess that's a different way to do it. Just go with your buddy and paint the car the same. Oh, yeah. So not even so the compacts you said Redneck Rumble is the one that did you run it last year in a compact?
Last year I did run Redneck Rumble in the compacts. I ran the Wicked Team Show in the compacts. So
Sure. Is that a team event at the Wicked Team
yes,
Show? So
yes.
who's your teammate normally?
Uh, my teammates were just a couple guys that kind of needed a fourth man, and they picked me.
Sure.
And I built my car in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I told them when I got there, I was like, "Hey, I'm not running the consi. I'm not running the feature." I said my job's to get you guys to the feature.
Right.
And it came down to me versus like three Mustangs. And there was a red flag. And I asked the official, I said, "Hey, is it 1 on 3?" And he shook his head yes. And I'm like, "Well, it's time to party." And I tried to do my best. I held my own for about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I got both of my headers touching each other.
Nice.
So
Nice. So through the whole like creation side of it and YouTube and the Instagram and all that. Have you built a lot of friendships through the Derby world because of that?
Oh, definitely. It still amazes me. Like I can show up to Blizzard Bash, or we ran a show in Michigan, and 50 people will walk up and be like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan. I love your videos." And the amount of children that come up to me and say, "Hey, I love your videos," and I have to tell them like I check a box on YouTube that says this video is not to be shown to children. I'm like, I've watched all your podcast here, and I haven't heard any of your fans or your guests cuss. And I'm like,
Um,
well,
some of them did. Some of them
I
did.
I haven't heard one slip yet, and I'm like, man, it's gonna be hard for me
Oh
to
no, no, no,
go.
no. No, you can cuss. You can cuss. If you go back like 3 or 4 episodes, the guy with the mini truck, he cussed constantly. So cuss, drink beer, smoke cigarettes. I always tell all my guests, you can do all of it. I don't care. As long
See,
as
that's
well, we don't get censored. I don't care. We can do it all. I click the same
the
box, not allowed for kids.
the beer and the cigarettes. Like that's too much money, man. I'd rather dump it in a car.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. So what kind of rear end you got underneath that thing that locked up on you?
It is a 10 bolt with 4, 5, 6 gears. Uh, Sometimes it goes forward. Some like we unloaded it from the trailer. I drove it off the trailer, put
Sure,
it in drive, and then it locked up again. Put it in reverse, and it locked up again. So we just shoved it all the way in here with the tires locked up.
sure, sure. So the pinion or something got jammed
I
in there.
I think the gears. This is actually the rear end I ran at River City Rampage when I got flipped over. So I'm wondering
Oh,
if when I got flipped, if something didn't jar loose.
sure, sure. Now that you're kind of getting your name out there, do you get people calling to sponsor your cars or anything like that?
I actually made a post and on my website, I did a thing where if you donated $7, I wrote your name on the roof of this car. And I think we had like 40 people donate.
That's pretty
And
cool.
then when I got to Topeka, some guys showed up and they said they were from Frito Lay's, that they were huge fans. And they gave me 2 giant boxes full of potato chips, chips and dip.
Really?
And yeah, we're still eating on that.
Nice. That was down in Topeka?
Yeah.
That's pretty
I guess
cool.
they got a Frito Lay's factory like 15, 20 minutes from the track, and
Yep.
some guys just showed up. And
Huh. That's that's pretty neat actually. I guess I would have never thought that I guess you never think of Frito-Lay guys being derby guys, but anyone can be a derby guy.
yeah,
That's pretty neat. Well, that's pretty cool too, the whole 40 people, getting the name on the roof. I don't know, it's just a way to get the name of the sport out more. That's kind of my mission, and kind of what we do, just because derbying isn't in the limelight like a lot of the other bigger sports. And I would say a lot of the derbying events pay out a lot more money than some of the, like, I don't know, you go to like a street, stock car races or things like that. There are big events in that, don't get me wrong, but across the board, derbying at most shows, like 15, 20 grand throughout all the classes. That's like in North Dakota, that's like average for a small show. So, I mean, there's a lot of money involved in the sport. Be cool to see it on a large scale.
my coworkers, they were asking me like, "Why are you going to build a car and drive 8 hours to Kansas?" They were like, "How big is this derby?" And I said, "Well, I think last year it brought like $2 million to the town of Topeka just in revenue,
Five. I think it was
5 million."
5 million. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We do dumb things for the sport. Back in 2019, I ran down in Las Vegas, which was a 21-hour drive from my house. So I don't know why we do it. We just love it. I mean, it
So
was
how long did it take you to drive there?
um so on the way down, we did it in 2 days. Uh we stopped in Wyoming the first night, and then the rest of the way on the way home, we left on a Sunday at noon. And I don't remember what time I walked in my door, but we drove straight through all the way home. That was tough. It was miserable.
Like I was saying, Vegas was 24 hours from my house, and that's a long way to drive.
Yeah. And we had guys from around here that went to Kansas, ran in Kansas, then drove from Kansas to Vegas, ran in Vegas, brought two cars with Kansas, and then drove home. That's a lot of driving and a lot of derbying in 2 weeks and
What
big
do they
builds,
do? What do they do for a living? Because that's what I want.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out too. I don't know, but you know, I want to say I'm not 100% sure, but I think their drive from Kansas because they got second or third in the team in Kansas, and I think it was a 17-hour drive from Kansas over to Vegas. So 12 to Kansas, 17 to Vegas, and then another 21 home. They had a lot of miles on before they got back.
So coming back from Blizzard Bash this year, how much snow did you run into on your way home?
When I got home, there was 27 inches of snow.
Wow. I
Yeah.
was talking to Kyle Anderson, I think. I think he's up from North Dakota.
Yep.
And
Northwestern.
he was worried about running into a bunch of snow on his way home. So
Yeah. The road, we luckily got out of North Dakota early enough because there was a few guys that didn't get out early enough on their way down to Kansas. And, it held them back like 8 hours. Roads were closed. I don't know. Hundreds of vehicles in the ditch, semis. It was pretty nasty when we got back. Um, roads were still kind of icy because it rained right before the snow, so the roads were just solid ice. But yeah, it was kind of nice because we stayed in Lincoln, Nebraska the first day on our trip down there, and it was like 69 degrees. And when we got home, it was like 15. So that kind of sucked.
yeah, we rolled into Kansas. We got to the track at like 2:30 in the morning on Tuesday morning
Sure.
and tried to sleep in the truck. My fiance, she slept in the truck just fine. I was too excited. Like I'm looking at everybody else's builds and I'm like, man, I feel like I need to start working on my car. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not done. I need to do more to it. And then the second night, I was like, let's go get a hotel somewhere.
Yep. Yep. So as far as the full size build, since you're mainly compact, are you mostly all self-taught then?
I got a couple buddies that have ran full size, and
Okay.
they get a lot of pictures and questions from me, and all hours of the night. I'm like, hey, what's the best way to do this? And they're
Sure.
like, you've already messed it up. I'm like, well, we can fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, no derby driver builds during the day. It's always at like midnight or whatever. There's a lot of those builds going on. Especially for Blizzard Bash, you want to triple check everything and the guy's kind of paranoid about the build and everything else. So do you have a schedule for where you want to run in 23?
Um, right now we are running Redneck Rumble in January. The Southern Illinois Showdown. I think it's in April, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly River City Rampage in Henry, Illinois.
Sure.
And after that, it's kind of just a toss up. I'm getting married in 23, and my fiance says she wants to stay close to home. So, I'm
Makes
kind of
sense.
just seeing how close she considers close because, we're 2, 3, 4 hours. Like
Right.
after driving 8 hours to Kansas or even Michigan, like 8 hour drive is not that bad.
No. No, it's an 8 hours isn't too bad. Well, I was gonna say you should come up to North Dakota, but I guess that might be extending the reach a little bit on the 4 hours out.
Yeah, I feel like my truck low tire pressure light it's coming on just thinking about going to North Dakota. It seems like anytime it gets below 30, like it says I got low tires all around and
Right?
I feel like North Dakota is cold even in the summer.
Nah, it ain't that bad. We get 90s and 100s. We ran a show last mid-July last year, and it was 104. I was standing on the berm at 104 and laying under cars teching. So we get warm.
That's what I'm talking about. I'd rather sweat than freeze.
Yeah, I'm all right with the middle and split it down the middle. But I guess beggars can't be choosers.
So how far are you guys from Canada?
Uh, from where I sit, I suppose I'm about 3 hours. So not terribly far. I mean, you haven't really been able to go into Canada with everything going on in the world. It wasn't too long ago that they just released all the
Hmm.
bans. So I haven't gone over the border uh recently. I don't know because a lot of guys used to go across the border and buy cars and parts because cheaper and they were more abundant over there because not as many people can get over there. So we're close, but I don't know, not close enough, I guess, if that makes sense. There's a couple guys I know that live basically right along the border, and they're the ones that are getting a lot of stuff out of Canada right now. But yeah, we have that big show that'll be coming up kind of south of us in South Dakota. I'm sure you've seen everyone's all kind of up in arms about Sam's stuff coming back. So that's kind of, that'll be the new thing for around us, kind of see how that plays out.
Now, Sam's show, is that a week before Blizzard Bash or after?
Week before.
I'm kind of excited because if everybody goes to that, I could possibly win Blizzard Bash.
Hey, that's a great way to look at it.
Like I know a lot of people had their issues with, how Smash It does their shows, but I told Austin after he teched my car, I'm like, hey, I've heard a lot of bad stuff about you, but you seem like a pretty good dude in my
Yeah,
eyes. And I told Tim the same thing. Like the way my class was treated, I felt like the limit weld. Yeah, we went on the track at midnight, but other than that, like it was a pretty good heat.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't speak to it because I didn't run a car. It's always different in their shoes, and it's always a double-sided story. I'm not going to talk on anyone's behalf, what was right or what was wrong, but there's a lot of things said on Facebook. I can't prove them because I wasn't there. So, as always, there was people in the stands watching a derby, and I guess that's what we went there to do.
I think it'd be cool as a promoter, just film teching cars. You
Yeah,
know, if you get loaded and you want to complain online that you got loaded, well, let's look at the footage of where your frame's loaded front to back.
yeah, yeah. That's pretty good idea actually. Have or even just film the parts that were written on your sheet, and I guess if they want to complain about it, well, you got footage, and then the
Yeah.
promoter can just throw up the footage and be like, well, right here's the if you want to argue about it online instead of to us, I guess here's the evidence. Yeah, it's a good idea. Maybe someone will steal your idea off the podcast.
I'm fine with it. Go for it. I'd watch the videos because
Right.
that's gonna show me how to build a better car.
Right. Yeah, those videos will get all the big hits because everyone's gonna want to know what happened. I know, like last year down at Blizzard Bash, there was that caddy wagon. There was a
Yeah.
lot of talk about that car. I mean, quite honestly, I'd have loved to see the thing run. It would have been pretty awesome, but like I said, I don't know what happened on both sides, so kind of leave it there. That's for
It
sure.
looked nasty. It looked
Oh,
nasty.
it looked great. I think Sean Porth built it. It was a pretty sweet ride. Uh, I I guess I can't even say for sure if it ran somewhere else. That I never
I
seen.
think it ran here in Indiana. I think he took it to the Turkey Derby.
Okay. Okay. Huh. Yeah, I guess I should go look. I don't recall seeing how the aftermath picks, but it looked pretty nasty. It'd been pretty sweet to see a Blizzard Bash. Since those are like supposedly super, super rare cars. So to even get your hands on one is pretty awesome. So do you stay predominantly on the VIX, or have you ventured into old iron or metrics
Uh,
or
I haven't done any old iron yet. I'll do GMs here and there, and it's only because everybody seems to hate them. I'll crash anything that I can buy for $300 to $400. I
right,
don't care. I don't care what brand it is.
right?
Uh, Now the GMs around here are starting to go up in price, but the two that I've ran, I got them for like $400, and they ran and drove.
Sure.
I'm like, you can't beat that.
No, it's pretty hard to find a running and driving car for that cheap anymore. It's even for metrics, it's pretty hard up in our area to get them at that price point anymore. But I don't know. A lot of people knock them. I love running them, but whatever. To me, it's I rather wreck a cheap metric than a old iron that costs, maybe it didn't cost me $1,200, but I know I could turn around and sell it for $1,200.
I have two 80s Fords in my yard that I paid $400 for. They got the engines, transmissions, everything but the converters.
Yeah,
And people are trying to get me to sell it to them. And I'm like, these things are going for like $1,500. I'm like, I can't sell a car for that, and I'm not giving them away. So
right.
they'll sit out there until I build one.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I've been accumulating cars for quite a while. Um, I don't know. I just have always had a hard time running a old iron or an expensive car, I should say, at like a low, not a low quality, but a low paying or like a county show. I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong way to look at it, but maybe by the time I'll run them, then they'll be rusty and I'll be mad I never ran them.
I once had a price set in my mind. If anyone offered me a car below that price, I would buy it on the spot.
Yeah,
And I think at the height of it, I had like 28 cars sitting in
sure,
my yard. And I'm like, I'll build them eventually. And ended up wheeling and dealing, trading stuff for other stuff. And
sure. So do you
I
live
think
in town or are you on a farm?
I live out in the middle of the country.
Okay.
So
So you don't got to worry about neighbors and cars and things like that.
now I got one neighbor, he's a farmer, and every now and then he'll watch me do donuts out in the yard. So
Hey, that's fun. I still do it too. I live on a farm myself, and whether I bought the car and it ran and drove or I'm done with the car, something's gonna happen in the yard. Always.
I've been I've been doing donuts and figure eights in my front yard. I'm just waiting to see how long it takes Google Earth to pick up my
You tracks.
racetrack. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be pretty sweet. It'll be a sweet image. Yeah. Yeah, I mean do you feel like the sport is growing or dying in your area?
Altogether, in my personal opinion, I feel somewhat like the sport's dying. They're not making any more Crown Vics. You look at the vehicles they are making, everything's going to aluminum.
Right.
It's not going to be long until everybody's jumping into minivans and, pickup trucks. Around here, we don't even derby trucks anymore. So I feel like it's going to be really great, but I feel like it's going to all stop probably at once.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at some point, there's going to be an end to these cars. It's just how it
I
is.
I was telling a guy at Blizzard Bash, they have a clock that shows what the national debt is, and it goes up every minute.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see what that clock is on roundback wagons, and just see how many could be left when you see 20 of them show up to Kansas every year.
Yeah. I don't know. I've said that every year I've went, and it seems like 20 of them show up every year again. So they're
The
out there,
same
but
goes the same goes for Imperials. How many of those are left?
right. Did you guys, maybe I'm wrong, did you guys ban Imperials down in your area?
Yeah, they outlawed them. I I wouldn't mind running against one, but I'm an idiot. Uh, I took an '80s Continental to River City Rampage, and everyone told me like, "Hey, don't go nose up with an '03." And I'm like,
Right.
"Why not?" I'm like, "Let's see how tough they are." And I'm like, I'm not afraid of them. Like, let's
Right.
go for it, you know?
Here to party. Yeah. Yeah. We just recently, the past year or so, we allowed everything back to our shows, Imperials, O3s, everything. I mean, at the in our limited class, not our stock class, because stock class, Imperials are still gonna walk all over, a metric GM or something. But unlimited, the way these guys build these cars anymore, almost any car is compatible.
Yeah, like look at Blizzard Bash, you got Imperials, Caddies, Vicks all out on the same track.
Hmm.
All of them have their issues.
Or you have Derek Creetlow, he had that metric caddy there. National class, that thing held its own. I mean, that thing was hard. It looked awesome too. And he probably paid an eighth of what everyone else paid for their cars.
Yeah.
So, so yeah. And I'm trying to think if they did they get out of the qualifying? I can't remember now, but they had good cars, or he had a good car. He always does, but he started the whole metric caddy thing last year, and it's kind of cool to see because not many people are willing to get out of the comfort zone and do something like that for sure.
Any car on that track can win.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, especially in those classes, the rules they put out, I mean, there's really not much you can't do aside from maybe like putting cement in the frame or something like that for sure. Oh, is there anything you have for me, Clutch?
So what do you do when you're not doing podcasts?
When I'm not doing podcasts,
Yeah.
we do run Timeless Motorsports, so that's our promotion side of it. We put on derbies, car shows, mud runs. Tried to get into the snowmobile drag races, but that kind of got turned down this year. So I think as of right now, we got like 10 events we're putting on this coming summer. Aside from that, just kind of a gearhead, work on cars, uh, I don't know, tool around. We have a little motorcycle I tool around on the farm and live on a farm. So I have a few cows, do that. I don't know. Kind of motorsports are just my thing. That's where I stick with. Just, I don't know. I've always loved it. And I don't know. I told myself I was going to get out of derbying a couple of years ago, and it's not possible.
I've I've also like I've thought what's the next step if I ever get out of Derby, and I was sitting on a highway one day next to an airport, and I thought, you know what, if I ever sell out, I'm just gonna get my pilot's license and buy a plane because how cool would it be to own your own plane?
All right. That's crazy you say that because I just talked to someone tonight about getting my pilot's license. So I
I got a buddy who's working on getting his. And if you look up the price of a small two-seater plane, it's not much more than a good derby setup.
yeah. Yeah, I actually sold most of my big setup, all like the full cradle and all that, because I know I'm not gonna do that anymore, but I still have 3, 4 of everything else. So I'll run stock class, maybe touch on some limited weld. The vans, they're getting to be popular around here. I don't know about down there, but they're starting to grow around here. I don't know, might even find myself in a van. Who knows?
I got a van half built sitting in my yard. Me and a guy were gonna go chase the Unified Point Series, and I'm like, let's build vans, and he's like, all right. I was just like, tell me what show you want to go to because all of them's different, and I need to know how to finish
Right.
the van. And it kind of fizzled out. We never went, so I still got half a van built. Just I might pull it out next year and take it somewhere.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. John Muse is putting on a show in May that I might potentially build a van for. So it's like any of those other big shows, they're just hard to get into. So if I get in, I get in. If I don't, I don't. But I don't know. I got a car sitting in the shop right now that's done and ready to rock. So I just kind of go with the flow at this point because throughout July and June and maybe August, we got our own shows that we put on, so I can't run that whole time, and I'm not going to run my own show, so it's kind of limited on where I can run. So if I don't go out of state, I got to wait until like the end of the year or do it really early on in the season.
Are there other promoters around you, or are you the main one?
No, there's other promoters, so there's a lot of county shows around us. Um, and that's a lot of those shows still have like the fair board running them or the Lions Club or things like that. And then there is a couple other promoters with, two, three, four shows. Not gonna say we're the biggest by any means. So we're not but we're still trying to get everyone in North Dakota on the same page as far as rules. As everyone knows, rules at every show are different, so it's makes it hard for someone to like, I don't know, run all over. You just can't 'cause the rules change.
That's one good thing about here in Southern Indiana. Uh, Pretty much everybody copies and pastes one promoter's rules,
Sure,
so you'll have two or three different promoters all using the same set of rules. And I'm friends with the guy who usually comes up with the main set. And
sure,
I was trying to tell him, I said, hey, if you ever retire, your last rule set, just like put somewhere in small letters, like limos allowed or hearses are allowed, because
right.
everyone's going to copy and paste. And then when I show up with one, I can just say, hey, it's in the rules. And, just see if anybody's reading their own rules.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that goes on, the copying and pasting. It's definitely not the end of the world if that's what it takes to get everyone on the same page, I guess.
I seen Nick King. He's trying to do that with the compacts, so that'd be pretty good to see.
Yeah, I see. Was it today or was it yesterday? Sam Williams announced that he will be the head tech for him. So,
Yeah, and he's the head mini tech for Toast and what Iron City.
oh, okay. So, I don't know where Nick's located, I guess.
I think he's in Ohio.
Yeah. So, that's pretty neat. I'm sure he'll get all over. I mean, I would imagine he'll have to be everywhere every weekend teching cars. I mean, that's pretty much a full-time job if you're going to be doing that. Full-time
Yeah,
weekend job anyways. Especially some of those bigger, like the Topeka compact builds, that's a pretty big build. So it takes a little time to tech something like that. Did you get into the full cradles and everything on the compacts?
I did at one point,
Yeah.
and I sold my full cradle. I sold my built struts because I told myself that if I sold it all, I'd step away from compacts and I'd focus on full size. And then some buddies messaged me asking me if I'd run on their modified team. And I'm like, yeah. And I showed up without the cradle. Like I built a car without all the built struts and everything. And I let her eat. Like we did okay.
Yeah.
But
Could you tell that the parts, not having the parts didn't help, or didn't it really make a difference?
it might have saved my headers. But other than that, like I like being wider so I can go faster.
Right.
And the compact cradles, they weigh what, 700 to 800 pounds?
Right. And that's a lot of stress on those CVs as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of weight on those cars, like the ones that were pulling in the track down in Kansas there. I mean, you can just see them hanging, or when they're, if they do have any bounce to them, boy, it's surprising that the CVs just don't blow out when they hit a bump. A lot of weight there. But like I said, I don't have anything else for you. I do really appreciate you coming on. This was pretty neat. Kind of get the different perspective of someone else, a different state. Um, I really enjoy where you're going with it, not only from the Derby side, but from the content creator side, I guess you could call it. Sounds like you got a lot of fans out there, which is I bet that's kind of heartwarming sometimes, especially with those kids, like you said earlier.
Like we just reached like 50,000 followers across all my social medias.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind because, you look at my trophy shelf, there's not a lot on there. Like I'm not that good. I
Yeah.
tell all my friends, good luck finding a more popular loser than myself. Like
Yeah,
I will show up and lose, but I'll do it in style.
sure.
And I'm like, I'm just there to have fun. I'm not there to win. Let's go for Mad Dog. Let's ruin somebody else's weekend. Drink some Mountain Dew and just have a blast.
Sure. No, like I said, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences and um is there any plugs you want to put out there?
I
How
got a
people can find
website.
you?
I got a website, clutchmarlesmotorsports.com. And pretty much on any social media, if you just hashtag Clutch Marls as one word, I'll show up.
Sweet. Well, you heard it first. Got to go follow Clutch Marles. Thanks everybody.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, I
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on. You have a
We'll
good
have to
rest
do
of your
this.
night.
We'll have to do this again.
Absolutely. Maybe in person next time.
I'll try to get to North Dakota. I've never been.
Well, maybe I got to come down your way. I don't know.
That'll work. Maybe
Awesome.
we'll both be in South Dakota next year.
We'll see. I keep saying if there's an opportunity, I might run, but I don't want to speak now because then everyone's gonna ask, "Oh, you're running the show."
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, you have a good night and God
You too.
bless.
Thanks. Bye.
Now it's time to pack up. Figured I would show you guys the studio, little in-house studio I have. This is where I have most of my online guests or in-person guests. Like I said, I will be traveling next. So, as you can see, there's all my hard cases for the airplane. We will be headed out to northern Minnesota. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.